how you come back, that speaks volumes. And we're going to have a hell of a football team.
Be great on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Are you with me now? Said, are you with me now? Ain't felt this good in a while. They want us to simmer down. Can you hear me now? Am I going in and out? I stop and just look around to see if you with me now. Tell me how you with me now. Ready to put it down. Start at the bottom, already forgot them, but they won't forgive me now. You really ain't ready now. You haters just in the crowd, but still I just look around. Are you with me now? Are you with me now? Whoa.
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
It's the Cannon Fire Podcast, coming back at you for episode 70. If you're new around here, I am your host, Rhett. Joined alongside me, as always, my good buddy and co-host, Mr. Bucks Football, Evan. And Evan, we have got a tough task. Well, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a tough task ahead of them this weekend. They go to LA, they play the 3-0 Los Angeles Rams, the defending NFC champions. But aside from all of that, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. And, I mean, you said we have a tough task, and then correct yourself. Thank God we don't have to go up against these guys because, I don't think that would fare too well.
Right. The Rams, I mean, right now, everyone's looking at their last season, of course, a Super Bowl appearance. They lost to the Patriots, but they were undefeated for quite a long time. And they're just overall probably, if not the best, one of the best teams in the NFL that isn't the New England Patriots. So, of course, it's going to be the toughest game on your schedule. And the LA Coliseum, I've never really heard of it being a tough place to play, but it's definitely an atmosphere that can help you out in a home advantage if you are a team like the Rams. Like, to have that home field advantage, I'm sure, is nice because you're going all the way across the country. You're changing time zones, so I'm sure that's going to throw these guys off just a little bit. But they're going to do everything they can to rebound from their loss against the Giants. I think I'm finally done crying over it. And I'm excited to watch these guys play on Sunday. But they definitely have a pretty tough game on their hands.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams are obviously, like, if you're talking about, like, elite teams, you would put probably the Patriots, the Chiefs, like the Saints with a healthy Drew Brees, and then probably the Rams are in there too. So it's definitely a challenge, and I agree. It's probably the toughest game on the Bucs schedule this year. And then, obviously, going on the road, even though I don't think the Coliseum is that tough to play in, just because, I mean, it's not like Seattle or anything. Like,
right.
Like those fans aren't like too hardcore because, it's LA. But
LA football fans, man, they're some of the funniest specimens that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
There was a video last year when the Rams won to go to the Super Bowl in that game against New Orleans, and there was a live reaction of these everyone's like dressed up in Rams gear, and they're in LA in like a coffee bar or something, and they're watching the game. They kick the game-winning field goal, and then some dude turns around, he's like, "Is that it? Did we win?" And I mean, these guys just went to the Super Bowl, and their fans really didn't know what to do about it. So yeah, the LA fan base doesn't have a reputation of being a hard place to play.
Yeah, I mean, the toughest thing is going to be obviously going on the West Coast. That's the toughest thing, and of course, I mean, going, it's a quick transition here. Going on the West Coast, it all depends on what type of team you're playing, and right now this Rams team is pretty well stacked. So
yeah, they're 3-0. They're doing very, very well, and 2 of those wins came against Carolina and New Orleans, division rivals for the Bucs. But not only the game coming up this weekend, but afterwards, in terms of the weekend trip and then the overall schedule for the next 2 months, It's a lengthy trek away from Raymond James Stadium. We talked about it on the last show. It's a run of 6 weeks away. So they're going to go to L.A. After that, they play New Orleans. After that, they've got the London game against Carolina. And then you've got the bye week. I don't remember the order of games that closes it out. I know you visit Seattle, but I don't know if that's the last one.
Help me out here. Yeah, it's the Titans week 8 and then Seattle week 9. And then they're back in Tampa versus the Cardinals week 10.
And you'll be down here for that one, too.
I will be, yes.
Hell yeah, we'll have to meet up, try and make something happen. But, yes, so with all of that said, we can't drive the point home enough. This is a very important game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, I mean, I don't want to say if you have hope of salvaging the season because, no, the season is not over. They're 1-2 as opposed to 2-1 that they've started the past few years. But...
yeah, but, 2-2 sounds a whole lot better than 1-3,
Exactly. But if you can get to 2-2 by beating a team like the Los Angeles Rams, then that's going to say a hell of a lot about this Buccaneers team. So let's go over some of the biggest things that you need to know headed into this game. We're going to preview what we can and get you as prepared as possible for Sunday's football game. So, the Bucs hope to start their road swing with an uplifting victory as they try to get back on pace to 500. And then, of course, you want to keep pace with the NFC South because that's a division that everyone's kind of in the same spot in. The Rams, again, 3-0. They're going to try and stay in perfect condition. A lot of people have them as well. I think it was a pretty nasty point spread.
Yeah.
Bucs are
Last
definitely
time I
not
checked,
favorites.
Bucs were getting 10.
Yeah. That's rough. That's rough. So looking at this Rams team, one of the biggest things that I look at last year was just the amount of points that they put up. Everyone remembers the infamous Monday Night Football game between them and Kansas City. I think the final score was like 54-51. One of the highest scoring Monday Night Football games of all time. But their offense is great. They've got Jared Goff. They've got a lot of weapons around Jared Goff, particularly the wide receiver depth. But offense aside, as good as they are, their defense has really just kind of picked up the pace this year. They've, so far over these two games, led with their defense because the Browns only held them to 20 points. So the Browns' defense is okay, I guess, but I definitely don't think it's going to be as much of a shootout as it would have been last year because, of course, last year you saw the Bucs and their high-flying offense. I would have guessed 40 points for both teams last year, but, of course, we're not talking about last year. We're talking about this Sunday, Week 4. So I don't know. I don't think the offense is going to be not that big of a key, but just not that big of a factor. I think it's going to be a defensive game, and I ultimately think it'll be a low-scoring game. What do you think?
Yeah, well, it might be a little bit higher scoring if Daniel Jones was the Rams quarterback, but
that's right.
Anyway,
NFC Offensive Player of the Week, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know how Shaq Barrett doesn't get Defensive Player, but I guess I don't know. I guess if he would have won, it would have been different. I don't know. But anyways, I mean, yeah, the Rams, just like you said, they're 3-0. They're going to want to get to 4-0. That's not, there's no lack of motivation there. So, and honestly, the Rams have to keep up. The 49ers are 3-0 as well.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I believe no, the Seattle Seahawks, they're not. They're 2-1 right now. But I mean,
yeah, they just lost to New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, like the Rams sort of have to keep up. So I mean, this isn't like a throwaway game for them. Like I know, like a lot of people. I personally think the Bucs are getting like a lot of points, and I might take that because I don't know if it's going to be 10+ points that they're going to lose by, or maybe even win if you bet they win. Obviously,
right?
Then you're in good shape. But I just think that line is it's pretty high. Like Tampa's getting a lot of points. Just
right.
Like, I don't know, man. Like I'd be tempted, but I don't really bet that much, so I don't really have to worry about it. Yeah, but like you said, and on offense, Jared Goff. This is actually Greg Allman put this out. I included it in my opponent preview today. The Bucs are actually the only NFC team that Jared Goff has not yet faced in his career. Because when the Rams played the Bucs, it was Week 3 and Case Keenum was starting and Jared Goff was still on the bench. Jared Goff was not starting then, so this is the first time ever that Jared Goff will actually play the Bucs.
Awesome. So do we consider him a rookie quarterback then, or?
Oh, well, it all depends, because if you do, we'll just light you up. And,
Yeah, I know. He'll throw for 400 yards and 6 touchdowns.
I'd rather have that from Jared Goff than have that from Daniel Jones. But, anyways, I mean, yeah, and the one guy you left out was a big piece was Todd Gurley, and of course,
Yeah.
Todd Gurley hasn't really been the same since a few injuries he had last year. It really seems to be slowing him down, but he's still one of the best backs. And I think, Bruce Arians said, their priority is stopping Todd Gurley again this week, because the Rams, even though they do have a lot of receiving threats, they like to run it with Todd Gurley too.
Right. And that's the biggest thing that we had mentioned before about this road stretch, is that the Buccaneers are facing an all-star roster of running backs. You've got Todd Gurley this week, and then you've got Alvin Kamara next week. So you've got some guys that you're going to have to contain.
Again?
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey again, which I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out. Of course, we're talking 2 weeks ahead, but Carolina's definitely going to have a game plan to try and get him involved in different ways than they did before.
It'll definitely be different than the Thursday night game.
Absolutely. But, yeah, the running back talent is something that there's going to be plenty of, and the Buccaneers did a great job of holding Saquon Barkley to a little over, I think it was 11 yards was where he finished at before he got injured. Of course, the adjustments weren't made after that, and the rest is history. But they did a good job slowing down the best running back in the league, and I'm confident that they can try and do the same with Todd Gurley. Of course, Sean McVay, he is a ridiculous play caller, so he's probably going to have an answer for what the Bucs are able to do to shut down Gurley. But that is a huge key, is shutting down Todd Gurley, because like you said, he's not the running back that he was, but he's still Todd Gurley, and he's still going to do Todd Gurley things. He'll run right through somebody and pick up a first down when you least expect him to do it.
Yeah, he's not as quick as Barkley or McCaffrey, but he still definitely is fast. So I mean, and the Rams' offensive line is still pretty solid. So yeah, they're gonna want to run the ball. As for defense, to me, it all starts with Aaron Donald, man.
Oh, dude,
he's such a weapon that he literally takes away a whole side of the offensive line, because especially when you're running the ball, you do not want to run to the right side.
And if I'm thinking
whatever
correctly,
side he's on.
And if I'm thinking correctly, he's lining up against Alex Kappa.
Yeah, I mean, most of the game they'll probably want to, but the Bucs will double team him. It'll probably be Kappa and Jensen most of the time. I mean, every team in the league double teams him.
You have to, man.
So
you have to.
I saw a stat it's 72% of the time he's double teamed, and 73% of the time he has a positive pass rush rate or something. It was something crazy. But yeah. Definitely just an absolute force, and I personally think he's the best defensive player in the NFL. And I personally believe that when it's all said and done, he's going to go down as one of the best, not the best, but probably one of the best defensive linemen to ever play the game.
Absolutely.
He's just so quick and strong and just powerful for a guy, he shouldn't be able to match those two things, and he just does. And it's so difficult to run the ball against him. And even if you pass, you got to be sure that, you're doubling him up, and it can't be anything down the field, because eventually he's going to break the double team. He just is.
He's a next level athlete, and of course he's something that every single team that goes against LA is going to have to game plan for, because he's a beast. The argument.
He's an offensive coordinator's nightmare, basically. He can just cause so many problems, so many different ways.
And the biggest thing, too, the argument that I've heard made so much is that, he's not the same because Ndamukong Suh isn't next to them. And sure, you can make an argument on some points.
He won
but Aaron Donald
the year before.
Aaron Donald is still Aaron Donald, and that's exactly what I'm saying. We can't ignore the pure athlete that this guy is, no matter who's playing next to him. He's not going to get 20 sacks this year because Ndamukong Suh isn't helping clear some room for him. But you cannot discount Aaron Donald. He is a freakish athlete, and in my opinion, the best player in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
So
and the Bucs actually, they had interest in Donald before that 2014 draft, but They had a heavy interest in him, but at the time they really felt like they didn't need him as much because, you got to remember, I mean, Gerald McCoy at the time was pretty much still in his prime. I mean, this guy was, 26, 27 years old, and they had a huge need at wide receiver, so they went and they picked Mike Evans. I don't really think they regret that pick, honestly.
Absolutely not, but obviously, I'll say this.
Obviously, you can look back at it and stuff like that. But, I mean, would you rather take the best defensive player in the league? Probably, but they're not angry that they took Mike Evans.
No, nobody's upset that they took Mike Evans. Mike Evans, an elite, I'd say so far this season, top 3 receiver.
Whoa.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
In one game.
I know, and it was such a good game. And it was such a good game, Evan. I'm that guy.
You are.
I'll update you with my Mike Evans standing throughout the season. But right now, the way that I look at it, the way that he just dominated New York,
a terrible defense.
Yeah, I know. It was so awesome, dude. It was great. Okay. Buccaneers still lost that game, but let's get back on track here. Let's talk about the Rams team that we're playing this Sunday. I've got a few more things I want to say about the offense, and then we can focus on the defense for the Rams because, like I said, that's what they do the best so far. But they have a very, very talented young quarterback, of course, Jared Goff, and then the receivers he can throw to. It's going to be another test for the secondary. New York wasn't really a test because nobody expected Daniel Jones to do that.
And they still failed.
And they still failed. So, of course, you're going to worry and you're going to overthink, just like I am, about the secondary. I'm kind of worried. I kind of said earlier I don't see them throwing up a ton of points, and I kind of want to hang on to that because I trust that we can pressure Jared Goff because, of course, that's going to be key in any game is pressuring the quarterback, especially when your secondary cannot pick up the slack. But I'm kind of nervous, Evan.
Kind of like me?
Yeah, I think I'm actually nervous
thanks
to see how
shout
the
out
secondary.
on the Bucks beat,
on the Bucks
too.
break. Yeah, man.
Yeah, Bucks break.
Johnny B show every Monday night, 10 p.m. on 102.5 The Bone is the weekly Bucks break. If you listened to the last one, you heard me give Evan some credit because he texted me at halftime of the Bucks-Giants game and said, this game is going to be closer than people think. And I said, no, it's not. And then, the rest of the game
turned out
happened.
to be. But I was wrong because I said I thought the Bucks would win, but it would be close. So,
yeah, but everybody thought the Bucks would win. Come on, man. If you would have told me it's 28-10, if at halftime of that game, 28 I know we keep going back to it. I know.
Back.
But if at halftime of that game, 28-10, Bucks are in the lead, offense looks great, defense looks as good as it's ever been, I would have bet my house. Like, I would have done some serious betting to make my money that I thought I was going to make till Daniel Jones' pretty face took it away from me.
Man, Rhett, then you wouldn't have a roof to live under right
I
now.
know. I'd be doing the show from a cardboard box.
Yeah, hey, whatever you got to do, But thank God you didn't do that because, you're not a fortune teller. And,
yeah, really. But, Evan, let me ask you this. In regards to the secondary on Sunday, what are they going to have to do to basically cover their ass and try and look alive against Jared Goff and a pretty high-powered offense?
Well, the biggest thing, I'm concerned with two things. I'm concerned with Carlton Davis's speed because Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks are two outside receivers, and those guys are pretty fast, especially Cooks.
Yeah, they got some wheels. Brandon Cooks in particular.
Cooks is really fast, so I'm not really sure how much Davis is going to be matched up against him. I'm sure the Bucs would prefer to have Davis on Woods and then Hargraves on Cooks. Just because Hargraves is a little bit faster, Cooks is Woods is a little bit taller than Cooks, so that could be a mismatch for them if Woods goes against Hargraves. So it's kind of like perfect if VH3 goes against Cooks and Davis goes against Woods.
Right.
The real concern for me, though, is in the slot with Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp has been one of the best players on the Rams offense this season so far. Coming off a major injury last season, he's been healthy, he's been motivated, and right now, MJ Stewart does not look very good. Like, he's had some moments. Last game, sort of settled in after getting abused early a little bit, but
yeah.
Cooper Kupp is like a whole nother level than what the Giants are going to throw at him. If Cooper Kupp was on the Giants, he'd probably be their number one receiver. But right now, Cooper Kupp's playing a slot, and he's playing it very well. And MJ Stewart's got to step up. If they want to win this game, they have to shut down Cooper Kupp. And they just have to make Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks on the outside beat you. Is Cooper Kupp for them? It's such a weapon, and they're using him in such a way that he's probably a big part of their offense. Like right now, he might be a bigger part of their offense than Todd Gurley is. So it's a really big test here for MJ Stewart coming up.
Absolutely. So we'll sit tight and we'll see how that secondary does on Sunday, but definitely a matchup that you're going to want to pay extra attention to because it's kind of a wild card right now. We'll see how these boys do. But let's talk about the Rams defense because, like I said, that's what they're doing a lot better than their offense right now. Their defense is ridiculous. The Rams rank 3rd in overall defense and 4th against the pass. And one of the most important things to remember about this Rams defense is that they're very, very stingy in the red zone, which has been a problem for the Buccaneers and their offense. Year after year, the Bucs cannot find ways to score in the red zone, and we're kind of seeing it, especially second half of last week against the Giants. We're seeing it a little bit more this year. So that's going to be interesting as well, seeing what the Bucs can do in the red zone if and when. I mean, really,
even in the first half versus the Giants, if you think about it, there was only one red zone touchdown. And it was the Mike Evans screen pass. The rest of them were not really in the red zone. Like that first one might have been, but it wasn't inside the 10-yard line or whatever.
No, it wasn't. It was a play that had to develop. Jameis had to find him and float it up over to him. So maybe in the red zone technically, but I get what you mean.
Might be. I think what the red zone's the 20 or the 25 or whatever, something like that. That's considered the red zone. So it might be in the red zone, but I mean, come on, red zone touchdowns to me are inside the 10. Can you punch it in? Right now, the Buccaneers haven't been able to, and it's been an issue, for like you said, probably at least the last 3 seasons or so that they've had trouble doing that. And I mean, every defense is going to get stingier the closer they get to the end zone, and the Rams right now, and like I said, with Aaron Donald, it makes life a whole lot easier for the Rams to be, play contain and, just stop the run completely and make you pass it in the red zone.
Right.
And, whenever you're in the red zone, you always want to run it first, but because passing it's very difficult in red zone because everything's just so tight. But, the Rams are going to force you to throw it, and that's you got to find a way.
Right. And that's the thing, like you said, the Rams are going to kind of force you to throw it. But one of the things that I see about this Rams team that's different than any of the teams that we've played so far is that their pass rush is just, not only do you have Aaron Donald, who you put him on any team in the NFL, you're going to worry about a pass rush. But we talked about Aaron Donald. Let's talk about Clay Matthews, former Packer. People might know him. He's actually done really, really well with LA so far. He has got 4 sacks in his first 3 games as a Ram. We talk about Zach Barrett. He's still doing his thing, leading the NFL, but Clay Matthews hasn't been a slouch either. Again, 4 sacks in 3 games. He's definitely putting the pressure on some of the quarterbacks, and that pocket collapses pretty quickly, and I think they're the team that's the best at that out of any team we've played so far is pressuring the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, and they got, not only Clay Matthews, they have Michael Brockers, and they have Dante Fowler Jr., so they can get after the quarterback very well. And Wade Phillips, their defensive coordinator, is a pretty smart guy, and he's going to know how to game plan for it. So my advice to the Bucs offense is just you got to try to keep the Rams off balance with when they can send their pass rushers. So you have to be able to run the ball well, which I understand is easier said than done with Aaron Donald and Michael Brockers inside.
Right.
It's way easier said than done to be able to run the ball well. But you have to be able to run it well because if you're going to pass it every time, those pass rushers are just going to tee off, and Dante Fowler and Clay Matthews are too good to hold the entire game. Plus, when you have to basically double team Aaron Donald, that could leave Brockers 1-on-1, and that's just not a good. Even though he's likely to be going up against Ali Marpet. It's still not a good recipe for success if you have to throw it every single time, you know?
Exactly. And I mean, that's prime position. Like you said, you're going to be double teaming one guy. Brocker's going to be one-on-one. That opens up so much possibilities to send a guy in a blitz unblocked just because of everything that's going to be happening at the line of scrimmage. So it'll be interesting to see. But again, a big test for this offensive line of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A line that, to be honest, has cleaned up its act a little bit. I'm kind of proud of them. They look really good run blocking, pass block. They look okay. Sometimes they can let things happen. DeMar Dotson really showing his age. And,
DeMar's done. Like they're gonna get like there'll be a new right tackle next year.
I'm worried, man. I'm just worried about like. I keep saying I'm worried, and I'm sure every single Bucs fan on the face of the planet is worried right now. But you just look at that weak side of the line. DeMar Dotson has really just not looked good, and it's sad, man. It's like old
He's
Yeller.
A good dude.
He's a great guy. He's been in the Tampa Bay organization for a very, very long time. Always been a solid solid offensive lineman. He's always been solid, and that's all you can ask for.
He's never been the best, but he's never been, like a complete liability.
Right. That's all you can ask from the guy. So
and I mean, I wouldn't call him. I wouldn't even call this season like a complete liability. It just hasn't been good. That's all. He's been too easily manhandled. He's been there. Like he's been there.
I don't know. I don't want to say he's been getting beat up, but going back to what I said, he's definitely been showing his age. So you kind of worry about that. But aside from that, this offensive line has kind of shown me some things I didn't expect. They're very, very good at blocking with the run, which is going to be key because, like you said, it's going to be hard to formulate a run game against that defensive line and then just the defense of the Rams in general. Yeah. So let me follow that up with this question. Do you think this is a game where Peyton Barber produces more or Ronald Jones?
That's tough because I think they're gonna want to run Jones a little bit more just because I don't know how much they're actually going to want to run in between the tackles, especially the Donald side.
Right.
So I think they're going to want to try to stretch it out as much as they can, which would, be a point in for Jones. But also, how much of a workload does Jones get, right? So,
right.
I think it'll be a good mix. I think you'll see something similar to last week. I think both of them had pretty similar carries. I think it was like Ronald Jones at 13, Peyton Barber might have like 14 or something. I think that's what you'll see this week.
On the season, I think Ronald Jones has about 10 less carries than Peyton Barber.
Yeah, and that's just because Barber carried the ball a lot week 2 in Carolina, and Jones really didn't. So it all depends on what Arians wants to do. And the Bucs right now, are kind of trying to follow the Patriots mold, which is game plan week by week. Game by game, get a different game plan in there. It's completely different game plan. Utilize a different player.
Yeah.
Versus the Giants, it was Ronald Jones, Mike Evans, O.J. Howard. Didn't really see much of Chris Godwin, versus the Panthers, there was a lot of Chris Godwin, not much of Mike Evans.
Right.
So it was a lot of Peyton Barber, not much of Ronald Jones. So they're basing this as a week-to-week thing, and, we'll find out what they think of the Rams' defense on Sunday and what they think will be best.
Right. And another thing, too, kind of talking about that dual-threat running back situation with Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones. Peyton Barber, we know, is a guy who, his shoulder pads are always pointing forward. He's going to make you earn the tackle, basically. He's going to slow you down because he's just going to come and he's just going to hit you. And that's great. I love that quality in a running back, and I think it's a running back quality we haven't seen in a little while in Tampa Bay.
LeGarrette Blount, probably.
Yeah, but, he wasn't here for any playoff runs.
Oh, well, how many runs has Peyton Barber had?
Yeah. Anyways, Peyton Barber, I kind of like to think of the two-headed monster where Peyton Barber can kind of just wear those guys down, run an interior, and then Ronald Jones can come and clean up the mess if it comes down to that point.
But the hope is that Peyton, like you said, Peyton can come in and just wear guys down, and then Ronald Jones can come with the explosive play. Because they're not really counting on Barber for explosive plays. That's why with screens and stuff, you've seen Dare and Ronald Jones out there, just because Peyton Barber isn't as explosive as those two.
Right. So, looking at this offense in general, the Buccaneers offense going up against the Rams, I don't really see this as a game where they're going to look to stretch the field as much as they did against New York. I mean, do you?
They're not going to have the time.
Right.
New York doesn't have need.
So, yeah, I mean, in that situation, they're not going to have a ton of time to do anything.
The other reason I don't think, like, they're not going to have as many open guys because the New York defense is just not good. So
yeah,
the Rams defense, especially the back end, is much better. Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, Eric Weddle, who I think many people forget that Eric Weddle's there.
You just reminded me. I forgot that Eric Weddle was there because what I do remember is when they were playing Carolina and he got busted open.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I forgot about him after that.
Yeah, so they have Eric Weddle and I think John Johnson is their other safety, I think. But I mean, they're all talented. All those guys are talented.
Yeah.
Nikel Roby-Coleman, who's their slot corner, who's the infamous guy who got the non-pass interference call. So I mean, that's honestly what he's most famous for. But he's been a solid player for them. So, and even the Rams linebackers, Corey Littleton, I believe, is still there. They have a lot of solid linebackers, and it's a good front seven. It's a good back end. Like, there's just not going to be. So yeah, I would expect the Bucs not to go vertical as much. I think they're going to want to get the ball out quick.
Yeah.
I think it'll be short, intermediate stuff. And then if they think, if they see a coverage they like, they might be able to check out and go vertical then every now and then. But yeah, that won't be the main game plan. Winston won't be throwing for 380 yards this week.
Right. And that's the thing I was going to follow up with as well, is like looking at Jameis Winston, the best way I can see him getting comfortable in this game is, like you said, just kind of getting the ball out quickly, setting up the short routes, dumping it off on a screen or whatever he's got to do to really find that comfortableness in the pocket, because the pressure is going to be coming at him. And if he comes out anxious as hell like he has been right at the beginning of the game, then I can imagine he'll make some sort of mental mistake when the Bucs least need it to happen. Of course, you can't account for later on in the game. Things happen, and I'm not going to sit here and predict a Jameis interception, but he just has to have another game with little to no turnovers. He had one interception last week, and we kind of accumulated it to a bad throw. But if you're going to have a game with no turnovers, this kind of has to be the game. Even if you throw for one touchdown and 175 yards.
It has to be a Carolina game. It has to be you run the ball well, you play good defense, you don't turn the ball over.
You take the sack when you need to take the sack, because Lordy, there's going to be a few.
Yeah, but man, I would like to see him run more. Like, it's just, to me, it's just an underrated weapon of his.
He's so good at getting away from people. Like, it's insane.
I just think it's an underrated weapon of his that's just scramble, and I just think that this staff just for some reason just doesn't want him to do it. I think that hurts him more than helps him.
Well, let's think about it. I mean, I think he's made most of his mistakes by having to scramble and having to look for options.
But he's one of the best quarterbacks under pressure.
Yeah. Like, and I mean, when he can scramble and he can get out, I think if he has room, tuck it and run, dude, because he's got those big tree trunks for legs that they say on Madden every 10 minutes. He's just a big-bodied guy. He can take a little hit.
Wow, if it was Madden, the guy touches him and he fumbles. So
right,
that's one thing I hate about Madden, man.
Yeah,
quarterbacks have just no ball-carrying ability whatsoever.
I didn't buy Madden.
Even when I tried to slide and they fumble, I'm like
yeah? Nice, man. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear Madden hasn't changed from the game that we all thought it was.
I mean, it's gotten a bit better because, like, last year it was, like, every time.
Yeah.
This time it's not every time, but, like, let's say, like, he'll break one tackle. If he hits another tackle, the ball just pop out.
Madden 19 was probably one of the worst Maddens I've played in quite some time, so I didn't buy Madden 20. I just saved myself the trouble.
Madden
if I find it on sale...
Madden 20 is better. Like, it's better.
Yeah. If I find it on sale for like $10, $15, maybe I'll pick it up. But until then, I'm just going to wait for the sales because I've been milking all my time into Borderlands 3. But this is a football podcast, not a video
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, man.
I don't really play those types of games.
I get you. It's all good. To each their own. To each their own. I'm a big sports fan guy, or a sports game guy, so I've been playing a lot of NHL. That's been fun.
Yeah. I've got NHL.
So, we've kind of gone over this Rams game. I'll throw some fun facts at you, and then we're going to do our checklist. Because I kind of like the formula we had. I did this for the preview against New York with James on filling in. And we kind of started this system, and I kind of like it. And you're welcome to add to it. I've got a few check marks. But we're going to break down this checklist. But first, let me throw some facts at you, just like I said I was going to do. So, you brought up Aqib Talib. Of course, Rams cornerback Aqib Talib played his first 4 seasons for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers before being traded to New England midway through his 5th year. Bucs picked him up, first-round pick in 2008. Aqib Talib definitely was not the corner he is now in Tampa Bay. He wasn't snatching chains, but he was a pretty disruptive guy when he needed to be. And then, of course... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was good. They should never trade him. That was just... Schiano just wanted to get rid of all the bad eggs. So,
yeah.
You keep good football players, man. Like, he hasn't been... Like, everywhere he's been, there's been every now and then some trouble on the field, but you never really hear anything off the field or inside the locker room. He's,
right.
That's the type of player you keep.
He's a Super Bowl champion. At the end of the day, that's what matters. But yeah, so former Buccaneer, and then many people don't know this. I'm sure a lot of people found out, just like myself recently, but Sean McVay started his career in Tampa Bay under John Gruden.
Yep.
He was an advisor? Or an assistant?
He's like some sort of like almost like an intern.
Yeah, he was like a promoted water boy.
Yeah,
he didn't
so don't sit there and, oh my god, the Buccaneers had Sean McVay on their staff. They did, but kind of.
No, I loved when people found out. I love the reactions that are like, I can't believe we let McVay go. I don't know why the Buccaneers do this all the time.
An 18-year-old Sean McVay.
Right, yeah. But just a cool little fun fact, and then, of course, the obvious one, the glaring thing that we have yet to mention, Buccaneers defensive lineman Ndamukong Suh was a starter on the Rams Super Bowl team that unfortunately lost. And, another thing people may not know, safety Darian Stewart played for the Rams from 2010 to 2013 when they were still in St. Ous. So, not the LA Rams.
I forgot Darian Stewart was on the team.
Yeah, a lot of people do, so I'm here to remind you. But yeah, those are some matchups that'll be interesting to see. It's kind of cool to think of just where the NFL takes these players and how some of them started in Tampa. But let's talk about the checklist. So, we've got some big things on the checklist. Number 1, block Aaron Donald.
That sounds like a good plan.
Number 2, block Aaron Donald, because it's going to take 2 guys to do it.
Very good plan.
Number 3, you're going to want to pressure Jared Goff, of course, because these guys have the ability to not only stretch the field against a fairly weak Tampa Bay secondary, but they've just got variety and they've got weapons everywhere. So,
and with McVay calling the plays, there's just so many different ways that they can do things. So
absolutely. So you're going to want to pressure Jared Goff, and you're really going to want to hope that Shaq Barrett has another ridiculous game this week. I don't know if I want to go out and predict a 3 or 4 sack game once again, but I think he's going to show up. I think he'll get us 1 sack.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know?
I think Ndamukong Suh gets a sack.
Really? You think they push him through just enough to get him to Goff? I like it. I like the way you think, my man. So, you want to pressure Jared Goff, and then our 3rd check on the checklist, or 4th, I guess, because 2 of them were block Aaron Donald. Another check on the checklist. You just want to be conservative on offense. Looking for Jameis to be conservative. You want him to get comfortable, get the ball out of his hand quickly, and just get it to where it needs to go. Because, like we said earlier, you're not going to have a lot of opportunities to stretch the field. So you got to get it out when you can, keep those chains moving, and wear down that Rams defense.
By conservative, Rhett doesn't mean like run, pass, run, pass.
No.
He means like, passes that are safe, a screen, a quick slant, just
take
things
the check
things
down.
that you can execute well.
Yeah.
A post to the corner that goes 10 yards, those are the types of things you need, especially because you have to play that way because you're just, like I said, you're not going to have as much time. So you're not going to be able to say, hey, Mike Evans, run down the field and I'll hit you because most likely either Winston's taking a shot or he's taking a sack because he won't be able to have that much time.
Absolutely. And, I mean, you kind of think about the way that you want this offense to work. You think about the conservative throwing the check downs, throwing the curl routes, whatever it is. I think a guy who can step up and really help out a little bit more this week is Cameron Brate because he is just ridiculous at catching checkdowns. I'll say 99% of the time he's got it. He's not going to break many tackles, but even if he has a big-ass hit looming on him, he's going to catch the football. And I think he'll show up this week.
I agree.
So, Evan.
I don't know if he'll show up, but they don't want to seem to get him in there. But I agree that he's a safe check down guy.
Yeah, I think he'll have some opportunities. But what about you? You got anything you want to add to the checklist?
Yeah, one more. Block Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald, absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty important. Although, I mean, you got to block the other guys too. Because, like I said, I love Dante Fowler. If the Bucs really need a pass rusher this offseason, he's a free agent. He'd be a top target. He's going to cost a pretty penny, which I don't think they'll need really because I think they'll end up paying Shaq Barrett a good bit. So
yeah.
But if I'm any GM, I would have Dante Fowler on my list. Clay Matthews, like you said, I didn't know that he had 4 sacks. So it's a little bit surprising because last year in Green Bay, kind of looked like a shell of himself.
Yeah.
But he's productive right now. So
I'm in a new system, and
if he's hot, he's hot. And then Michael Brockers. Michael Brockers has quietly been one of the, I think, the better defensive players in the NFL. And yeah, he's just a really good player and a really good compliment to Donald. So not only block Aaron Donald, but got to find a way to stop or at least slow down a lot of those other guys.
Yeah, it's going to be intense in the pocket for Jameis Winston, but we'll see how this offensive line can handle it, and we'll see if they can capitalize. But ladies and gents, that is your weekly game checklist. I think that's what we'll call it. Maybe we'll call it like the game preview checklist, the week 4 the week 4 checklist, and then we'll just go week by week. There you go. There is your week 4 checklist for the Bucs games against the Los Angeles Rams.
Are we doing predict?
No, we can squeeze in some predictions. We can do some predictions, and then I was thinking we'll throw a little bit of Buccaneers news out because we do have one big update this week that we should talk about at least a little bit. But yeah, man. So what is your prediction? I'll have you go first.
Okay. Well, it's tough because I'm going to say right now I don't think the Buccaneers win.
Yeah.
What's tough for me is the score because there's a way I could see this being a really, really close game where it comes down to the final second, but I could also see the Rams winning pretty easily. I'll go Rams 31-23.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with. Aaron Donald gets 1 sack. Okay. But overall, the Buccaneers can contain them okay. Jameis Winston throws a touchdown and an interception, and the defense picks off Jared Goff once, but the defense just doesn't do enough to stop the Rams enough, and that's why they lose eventually.
Okay. I hear that final score total, and I'm going to add one more thing to my checklist. Make your kicks. Matt Gay has to make his kicks.
Yeah, he's on the hot seat now.
Yeah. And if he misses anything, even if it's a PAT,
well, I mean,
fans will be calling.
If it's a 65-yarder, then that's a little
right. Yeah,
he should be excused on that one. But
yeah, Matt Gay, make your kicks. But let me jump into this prediction here. I'm with you in a sense. I said that I don't see this being a very high-scoring game, and I think I'm going to trust my gut here and say that it won't be a super high-scoring game. I think the Rams will get vertical. I think their offense will get going. I think the secondary will get exposed. But I think the defense is going to do just enough to keep this as close as it needs to be. But I don't think the Bucs are going to win. I will say 24-14 24-14 Rams.
Okay.
Like, I'll say it really kind of comes down to the wire. Fourth quarter, the Rams just get that extra touchdown in the last few minutes that kind of puts them up and over. And I don't know. Sort of like
the Bucs didn't do against the Giants. Like, score that last touchdown just to really put it away. So, like, with 4 minutes, with 4 minutes left or whatever, and the Bucs had the ball, they don't kick a field goal, they score a touchdown
and win the game. Absolutely, I'm with you. And you know me, man, the eternal optimist. I mean, that's just I'm passionate about this team. But
Bucs are back, and Mike Evans, the top 3 wide receiver.
Oh, come on now. Don't argue me on that one. Don't argue me on that one.
I will argue you on that one.
He
has not been a top 3.
That'll be a week-by-week discussion. We'll start this segment, the Mike Evans ranking for the week.
At least I don't have to hear they're in first place.
Yeah, at least you don't. Damn. So there is everything you need to know about this Tampa Bay Buccaneers game in Week 4. They're playing the Rams. It's going to be interesting to watch, but truly...
4:05, and then they finally have their first 1 p.m. game next week versus the Saints. So
Man,
Week
that's
5
weird.
is the first time they had a 1 p.m. game.
It's weird. Like these 4 o'clock games are weird.
Yeah,
because you wait all day.
Oh, I hate it.
You wait all day.
Like, if it's going to be horrible, I just wanted to get it over with, you know?
Right.
Like, why wait for something horrible?
There is a very small part of me that still has hope the Buccaneers shock the NFL and beat the Rams. And Johnny B, actually, on the Weekly Bucks break, he predicted the Bucks to win.
Johnny B's more optimistic than you are.
Yeah, he's definitely a very, very passionate fan, but shout out to our buddy Johnny B. He picked the Bucks to win, so we'll see what happens, but hang on to your seats, folks. It'll be an interesting football game. So, before we wrap things up and get out of here, we do have one bit of Tampa Bay Buccaneers news to go over for you, and it regards outside linebacker Jason Pierre-Paul. So, the Bucs and defensive end, outside linebacker Jason Pierre-Paul have agreed to a reworked contract that now expires after this season. The Bucs cleared $4.4 million in cap space, while JPP gets a $10 mil plus payday, plus a path to free agency in March. A compromise for both sides because we know JPP is still rehabbing his neck injury. I don't want to be the one to assume that the Buccaneers restructuring JPP's contract to open up some cap space means they're going to sign Shaq Barrett, but I definitely think it puts the wheels in motion for it to happen before the end of the season. Are you with me?
Yeah, that's what I don't know if the deal's going to get done, but I do know that the Bucs are going to be start to talk to Barrett's agent over the next few weeks here, and hope to get a deal done. As with a lot of players, they really want to bring Carl Nassib back.
Yeah.
Jury's obviously still out on Ndamukong Suh. I think it'll all depend on price for him at season's end. I don't think he'll sign for $9 million, but if he's asking for like $7 or so, I don't know if they give him $7. I think they're more in the the really bargain deal, like $4 or $5 million range for him.
Yeah.
Unless he goes on absolute tear, then he might get $9 million. But I just don't see him getting that again. Right. Jameis Winston, I think he'll be back either way. Whether it's a long-term deal or it's the franchise tag. Some information that I received, he's not going to go anywhere this year. Especially since the Bucs still think they're in win now mode technically. So I would expect a pretty active offseason from them, and this is just the first move of them just trying to clear some money to help their case with Shaq Barrett. And I don't think they expected Shaq Barrett to maybe get as much money as he's going to get.
Right.
I think they're sort of expecting, all right, this guy, if we want to resign him, he might cost $7 to $8, $9 million. Now he might cost, 12, 13, 14, $15 million. So,
well, and you kind of look at the Bucs cap situation coming into this offseason. If I remember correctly, they're projected, I think, 64 plus, right?
Yeah, and now with JPP off the books, it's around 77 or so. I believe they can free up another 6 if they cut or trade Cameron Brate, and they can free up another 4.5 if they cut or trade Will Golston. as well as 9 if they cut or trade Vernon Hargreaves, because the 5th-year option they did accept it, so it kicks in, but it only kicks in at a certain date. So they can trade or release him and won't have to owe him anything. So they could potentially have close to $100 million if they really wanted it. I personally think Will Golson will be back. I think they might try to trade Cameron Brate, and it's too early for Hargreaves. But I would guess, since it's just an option year for Hargreaves, I'd guess he's back.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be make or break for a lot of the guys that we talked about this offseason past. A lot of the one-year guys. A lot of the guys that you just don't really expect to stick around, like your Brashad Perrymans, who I don't really expect to be here next year. To be honest, your Dayon Buchanan, because we haven't seen a ton of him.
Yeah, but they like him a lot, so I don't know. We'll see.
You never really know. I'm sure it'll come down to the wire.
It's always good to have depth.
Sure, it'll come down to the wire, but these next few weeks are definitely going to shape up the guys who will, who they're going to want on this team next year.
Yeah, they're definitely gonna. They definitely keep tabs of that, of whose contract's up, and they're looking at those guys pretty close. And I think their minds have already been made about Shaq Barrett pretty early. So I think
if it was.
They just want to get it. I think they wanted to re-sign him anyway, but I think now they just want to get a head start, just because they know, like, if they do it now, they might be able to get a little bit of a bargain right now. So,
and that's the big thing.
Like, you sign him like $14 million a year, or towards like the end of the year, maybe he's asking for 18 instead. So could save a little bit of money. But I'm sure Barrett's agent won't want to do that. But
you never really know. It really just depends on how he continues to produce. If it was up to you and I, and I'm sure 99% of Bucs fans out there, he would have been signed.
He's on pace for 42 sacks, so I don't think that's going to happen.
Right. So we'll see how he can continue to contribute. He's done a great job so far, and he's one of my favorite guys to watch on the defense, because he is just making offensive tackles look stupid.
Just hope he stays healthy, because injuries can mess up a whole contract negotiation. Just look at Quan Alexander,
Exactly.
Bucs were pretty well ready to give him a long-term contract extension. He gets injured, and they do the wait-and-see thing, and now Quan Alexander's a member of the 49ers. So
yeah. So it's definitely interesting. Some sad news for Jason Pierre-Paul. Who knows? Maybe a deal could be made if he does recover. He still has the rest of the year as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. We might even see him in a uniform sometime before the end of the season. But that is your Bucs news for this week. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just about going to do it for this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you so much for listening or watching with video, whether it was on YouTube or BucsReport.com. You can follow the show on social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All of those are pretty much Cannon Fire Podcast, so you can find us there. Follow myself on social media, Instagram and Twitter at Redicus. You can follow my co-host, Mr. Bucs Football, on Instagram and Twitter at Bucs Wave. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Pinecrest Printing and Signs. Do you need an image for your business? Well, Pinecrest Printing and Signs has you covered in more ways than one. They've been providing the Tampa Bay business community with quality commercial printing and design since 2001. Their printing professionals are ready to provide you with quality marketing solutions for today's industry. They're also the newest sponsor of CFP. Make sure you give them a call at 813-684-5444 or check out the website at pinecrestprinting.com. One last thing before we get out of here. Last night was the Best of the Bay 2019 award ceremony, and if you follow us on social media, you had seen the nice plaque that we got that says Best Local Podcast. It's actually right in front of my face right now on the wall. Best of the Bay 2019 Readers Poll Best Local Podcast, CFP. Thank you so much to anyone who voted. I know we talked about it on the show before. I know people know that we won, but we cannot stress enough that
appreciate it.
We would not have won the award, and this show wouldn't be anything without anyone who tunes in week and week out. So if you voted in the poll, thank you so much. And even if you're just listening to the show, thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you guys. We really, really appreciate it. And honestly, didn't expect to win, but the fact that we did win just makes just reassures me how great you guys really are. So thank you guys a lot.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're just two Joe Schmoes with some opinions on the Bucs, and people choose to listen for some reason or another. But thank you so much for listening. That's just about going to do it for episode 70. I am Rhett, signing off for Evan, and we'll talk to you after the game. Go Bucs.